Yeah. Yeah, shipping me on that.
Good evening and welcome to the September 13th, 2021 Newtown Township Board of Supervisors meeting. The board was in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss two legal matters. I'll remind everybody this meeting is being recorded. Mr. Neese, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Nawn,
I am present.
Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lakehap.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Your solicitor, engineer, and manager are here.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. As we are coming off the heels of the 20th anniversary of the tragic events of 9/11/2001, please keep in your thoughts, your prayers, all of our first responders, all the people who needlessly passed that day due to the terrorist acts. And let's remember everything they've done. And I've seen it a number of times. Why don't we all just remember about September 12th, 2001, and go back to that day when we were all Americans. So. With that, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have before us this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written or consideration of any changes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second it. Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve this evening's agenda. Any further questions or discussions from the board? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have a consider the approving of the minutes from our August 9th, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes or consideration for any changes.
So moved as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lakehap, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve the minutes as written. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. First on the agenda this evening is a presentation. This is a presentation of a proposed Eagle Scout project by Jerry Blasey from Boy Scout Troop 315. I believe Jerry and his dad just walked in. So Jerry, I'll turn the podium over to you, sir. And then I'll ask you to repeat the scout law and oath.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. My name is Jerome Blasey. I'm currently a senior up at Archbishop Carroll and a Life Scout from Troop 315 in Newtown Square. And I am here to ask for approval on an Eagle Scout project involving communication boards and the installation of them at 3 public parks in Newtown Square. Some of you may be familiar with the Blasey name and its history with Eagle Scouts. You might know my brother John, who installed reflector strips on stop signs all the way back when I was a kid, before I was even in the troop. His project was called Be Prepared to Stop, fittingly. My brother Joe, his was called Be Prepared to Honor, which involved taking a trip to Washington, D.C. with a group of World War II veterans, honoring them with a program called Honor Flight. My brother Jimmy, his was called Be Prepared to Grow, in which he installed above ground flower beds at Divine Providence Village. And like my 3 older brothers, I hope to earn the rank of Eagle Scout, and I will be naming this project, if approved, Be Prepared to Know. This project involves installing communication boards at 3 Newtown Township parks. 3 communication boards to be installed. Our community needs to know about them and how they are used to help residents who have speech, hearing impaired members of their family, particularly young children. A communication board, sometimes also referred to as a talk board, is a device that displays photos, symbols, or illustrations to help people with limited language skills express themselves. The user can gesture, point, or blink at images on the board to communicate with others, specifically children communicating with adults. These can be useful in schools, homes, healthcare environments, or any community setting in which someone may suffer from communication disabilities. I come here tonight aware that the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors has voted to fund the cost of 3 communication boards installed at Drexel Lodge Park, Brookside Park, and Gable Park. Once installed, these will aid between someone who is nonverbal, someone who uses spoken language, which you can imagine would be very difficult. And with the communication boards installed, some of the difficulty children have communicating with adults, and even adults communicating with other adults, can be removed by the communication boards providing simple, recognizable images and symbols to understand one another. With your approval, My Eagle Scout project will be prepared to know will install these 3 communication boards in a location designated by Mr. Chariot, and include the installation of another small sign at the location of to explain how to use the board. A printed feature in 2 local magazines, press and newspaper, will also be included to spread the word of the installation of these boards and how to use them and their purposes. There will also be some social media postings explaining the locations and how Troop 315 is working with a speech pathologist named Julia Long, who designed and developed these boards. I've just had a phone call with her. She's very excited about the project we're working on. And on behalf of the township, even, I thanked her for coming along and giving us this opportunity for this very generous addition to the community. I think that this is a extremely big helping hand to a very niche group of children in the community. And I think regardless of how small or rare this may be a problem for some people, I think it's important to recognize that even as a troop, we have the power to help these people out in any way, shape, or form. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to share this presentation on this proposed Eagle Scout project, and I would ask for the approval on this so that we can benefit our community in so many great ways, more than just a one-day experience of installing some communication boards, but perhaps for so many years into the future, this will be a great asset to our community. Thank you.
George, are we good? Got a thumbs up from George. Does anybody have any questions for Jeremy before he sits down?
Are you, 'cause I know that you might want to go back to that podium. Never a non-question opportunity when I'm sitting here. Are you, I know that when we, a lot of laughter on that, I don't know, I should be offended. I know that when you initially brought it up to the township that you wanted to incorporate the signs into your Eagle Scout project, that you were going to be adding another sign to explain to the general public what the boards are and how they're used. Or is that still what you're planning to do? Yes,
one of our Scoutmasters, Chris Stack, has worked with pretty much every Eagle Scout project that's come out of our troop in terms of woodworking, construction, stuff like that. So he would help us out on developing and designing these signs. It would be just an informational plaque placed beside the sign talking about obviously describing the sign and giving instructions on how people can help them out. Background on Julia Long, the speech pathologist who developed these signs, Troop 315's involvement in installing them. So yes, I think Troop 315 would be responsible for creating and installing the sign beside the actual communication board, but the communication boards are going to be installed where Mr. Chariot designates. Yeah. No, I understood that. I just wanted to make sure you fleshed that out.
Any other questions? Jeremy might say that as Eagle Scout myself, it sounds like a great project. So
thank you. Thank you.
There's no other questions. I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
I will second that motion.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Thank you very much.
Motion is made by myself, the chairman, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve Jeremy Blasey's Eagle Scout project for the installation of 3 communication boards in Township Parks as designated by Mr. Chariot. Any further questions or comments on the motion?
Jerry.
Hearing and seeing none.
Not Jeremy.
Jerry? Oh, he introduced himself as Jeremy.
Jerome.
Chariot.
Jerome. All right, sorry. Jerome, Jerry. Young Mr. Blasey, Mr. Blasey, number 4. Speaking of that, I've been having great professional conversations with your brother John over the last 2 weeks.
Mhm.
But anyway, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Thank
What's your timetable? Okay, super. You good with that, George? All right. That was easy enough. Next on the agenda, we have an overview of the International Fire Code by Mr. Reczek. Andy, take it away.
Before Andy starts, I just want to make comment that this is kind of a follow-up that you requested so that everybody understands that Andy's coming at, at your request,
Yes.
having asked about this. We were going to have, we had a possibility of adopting an ordinance which would adopt the International Fire Code as our standard. And so Andy's here to talk about that. And that's what he's doing.
Yeah, if I may, just a few moments to kind of explain. I had a couple conversations with the fire marshal, and I know that in the future, we're planning on updating our land development and subdivision ordinances. And I think that the reason that I'd like to see our township adopt the fire code in its entirety is because it really effectively provides standards. Just like any other good ordinance, it gives developers and homeowners the opportunity to look and base their projects in tried and true standards. So one of the things that I think is most beneficial is it takes a lot of the uncertainty out of when an engineer is preparing a land development plan on what constitutes as a fire department access road or a fire lane, how they have to sign it, how it can be planted, what the design characteristics of that lane has to be. It also provides them information on where hydrants should be located. So the fire marshal obviously has a say in all that, but the main goal is to provide that information first and foremost in a tried and true set of standards. And then there can be some, discussion through the land development process on where those things should be. But that's the main purpose. Moving on from that, once a project's built, it allows the township to issue additional permits, like hot work permits for welding or hot roofs and other things like that for fire safety. So that's the main reason why I think it's beneficial for us to look into the possibility of adopting something like this in its entirety. Currently, it's only adopted by reference.
Does the state, is that part of the state's act, whatever it is, that has the state formally adopted the International Fire
Well, no,
Code?
the state adopts it only by reference
Only by
as it's
reference.
referenced in the building code. So that's
Okay.
why we would have to take the additional step in going through a hearing procedure. And also, once the ordinance is passed the board's approval, then we would have to send it up to the Department of L&I, and the UCC commission would oversee that to make sure it meets certain standards and I think it'll be fairly easy to do that, but they still may have some comments because the state will only approve a township modification if it's more than the current standard. So I think this is fairly simple to prove that.
Is it going to change anything fundamentally that we're currently doing? Is it going to put any more stringent regulations into what we're currently doing?
Well, I think only it would give designers the opportunity to reference a document that's tried and true, and to it would take a lot of the conversation and guesswork out of it. I believe that's my perspective on
So in
it.
other words, we're already asking for this stuff. This kind of memorializes what we
Right.
want. Okay.
It formalizes it.
Not to put you on the spot, but what does the International Fire Code say about sprinklers?
Well, you would have to go, both the residential code
Mhm.
and the building code identify specific use groups and when sprinklers are required. So back in, I'm going to say 2009, when the 2009 edition of the IRC, the residential portion of the code was adopted, it had in its edition that all residential homes would be sprinkled. that was amended later on that year or in 2010 because it was lobbied heavily from the Home Builders Association. And the economy was in somewhat of a downturn at that time. And the UCC Commission decided that that was not what they wanted to do. Now, of course, our ordinance currently overrides that.
Right.
Yeah. And then in the building side, in the commercial side of things, it's really dependent upon the use group. So if it's a business occupancy, in most cases, that would not require a sprinkler system. However, it then goes and looks at the building area. So you have to use both parameters to decide whether a sprinkler system is required.
But it's essentially not going to change anything we're doing now.
No.
So I think what you said, because it's something we're looking into for another issue, is that when the state amended that code in 2009, it removed the possibility of municipalities mandating single-family homes unless they already had something on the books.
That's correct. Well, let me say that was part of the original adoption of the UCC.
Yeah,
So back in 2000, well, it started in 1999, and eventually the UCC was adopted by the state in 2004. And what that said was, I believe Mr. Catania could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but back in 2004, what they said is if a township had a prior, more restrictive ordinance prior to 1999, it could keep that ordinance.
Right.
But that had to be filed with the state at that time of the adoption of the UCC or Act 45.
Okay, but then I'm hearing a municipality today who has nothing on the books can't mandate sprinklers.
They can't mandate it unless they go through the process that I described earlier with this ordinance. So because it would be more than the current code requires, and it wasn't a preordained ordinance prior to 1999, they would have to go through the hearing process here locally, and then they would have to submit the documents to the UCC board for approval.
Okay, and we're looking into all this, but thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions for Andy? All right, sir. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
So at some point, we'll be looking as a staff with some direction for us to go back and whether or not you're interested in us pursuing this further and taking the steps. There's, as Andy commented, there's several steps that we would have to go through and take in order to go forward. There'd have to be a hearing and those steps if we want to do this. So we will be looking for some direction from the board on that. We'll put it on a future agenda for that. But I just wanted you to be aware of what next steps are.
I think we should, before we take any, my thought is, before we take any more steps on this, I think we should do our investigation first.
Well, yeah, you said in the future, I think we're going to do it at the next meeting. Sorry.
No, it will not be next week.
I'm sorry, I just have a quick question for Andy. Andy, well, if we find that that we want to go forward with this, will it help with timing for permits? Do you think it'll help because you'll have, it's not going to be a question or an interpretation, because it seems as though it sounds like it's a little bit more clear cut?
I mean, my personal opinion, I think it gives a designer what he needs to design a project. So yes, as far as permitting, I mean, I think that this helps in the land development side of things more so than it helps expedite like a permit review. I'll tell you, our fire marshal is much quicker than I am in reviewing permits. So I don't necessarily see much of a difference there. But I mean, I do think it gives a good, clear basis for a designer to use when he's looking at like an overall project that you may see at the Baton property.
Right. So, but it would help to aid in that, by that you won't have to go back and forth on the
Yeah.
review.
Exactly.
So, okay,
Exactly.
all right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Tunise, I believe you're next. We have a budget award presentation.
Yes. So as you know, over the last 2 years, the finance department, with the lead from Rich Lafiata, our finance director, has submitted to the GFOA our budget and the process that we've gone through. If you look at our budget online, you'll see that it's actually quite involved. It's not a simple line item budget. It is actually has a lot of detail about, number of employees, how many are in each department, dollars based on each area of where we have spend of money, a variety of charts and things. And it also explains the process that we've gone through. There's actually a letter in the front of the budget that basically tells everybody what the budget's about, what's in there. It's designed to be really user-friendly. It's designed to show the public the process that the board and the staff went through to really get to those budget numbers, not just the list of numbers on a piece of paper. And so for the last 2 years, this has been submitted, and we were awarded from the GFOA Officers Association or Government Financial Officers Association the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the second year in a row to Newtown Township.
Woo-hoo.
Go, Rich.
So what we'd like to do, if we could, is get a picture with the board. And that, with
Before
that,
we do that,
Huh?
I think you should flush out. I mean, what is the percentage of municipalities that receive this award? Isn't it extremely small?
It is a pretty small, I don't remember the exact number. I don't know that 10 townships.
Out of how many?
Out of,
In Pennsylvania.
in all of
How
Pennsylvania.
many townships are in Pennsylvania?
2,570 municipalities in PA. Not all townships.
Out of 60 plus.
How many
counties.
municipalities are there?
Out of 66
municipalities.
counties, 66 counties, almost 2,500 municipalities. We received it, well, Rich received it not just 1 year, but
Twice.
2 years back to back.
Yes,
Only 10 this year,
10 this year, correct. Last year, I'm sorry, for
10
2020.
last year, maybe the same amount this year.
Yes.
Amazing.
It's awesome.
I think really what it does is it shows that as the board has asked us to be as transparent as possible through the budget process, we continue to do that. And we are trying to show to anybody who wishes to look at the document has the opportunity to really understand what we're doing, how the township is spending the dollars that we collect in taxes. And that's the real purpose.
Right.
I mean, the award is a great thing, but the real winners, are the community.
Yeah.
Because we're giving that kind of detail.
Absolutely. And I think it honestly goes back to, you look at the comments that this board has made when the legislature changed the Sunshine Act. The level of transparency that was intended in the new revisions of the Sunshine Act are things that this township has been doing for years under your tutelage. And now you look at this budget award that Rich has gotten for the township, or that Rich has earned for himself, I should say, not just once, but twice, again, with the key being transparency, open, effective government. I think it's amazing. And it really just shows to how this government functions on a day-to-day basis. And I think all of us thank you for that, excluding the residents. So let's smile for this photo. Let's go. We know you're looking
All right, now, with that, our next presentation is from none other than Mr. Lafiata. And this is our proposed operating budget for 2022. Again, remind everybody that this is just a presentation this evening. We will take public comment on the budget at a future meeting. We're simply rolling out the various parts of the budget right now, so everybody gets a greater understanding of what's going on there. And again, we'll present the entire budget and then take public comment at a future meeting.
Here, trust him, Rich, with the presentation up on the screen.
I don't have a choice. So, as you know, we try to break the budget up in 3 separate parts. We presented the personnel first, we presented the capital last time, and now we're moving on to the operating budget. The operating budget is the largest portion of the budget when you take personnel out. So I just want to go over the primary purpose of tonight's presentation is not to go line by line, but instead to describe variances from year to year. So like in previous years, we've broken our operating budget up into 6 categories. You have your personnel that's non-salary and benefit related, administration, operating costs, contracted services, facility and debt. And as you can see, we have some examples up there. So you know what's included in each category. So our first department is legislative. There's an increase in administrative services and contracted services. The addition in administrative services is related to our in-house newsletter in an effort to communicate better. We budgeted 3 in-house newsletters in 2022 versus our 2 in 2021. The other one you'll see is a $25,000 increase in contracted services. In the 2021 budget, we had a full-time communication person built into admin. Since then, we moved and had signed a contract with a third-party communications individual. So that's really just allocating funds to a different department from admin over to legislative. Overall, administration shows a very small increase of about 2,400. This is just based off the increase of cost of living in some examples or in some items that we looked at in operating expenses. Finance also shows a pretty small increase. This is associated with contracts. Our payroll services, our third-party payroll services went up a bit, and so did our CPA firm that we use for our audit that's hopefully going to be approved later in this meeting. Tax shows another small increase of about $1,000. In 2020, the county stopped producing a lot of documents to our tax collector that they used to help out with. Since then, we have to have Marie, the tax collector's software company, help out a lot, prepare some of the things that the county previously presented or prepared. So you see a small, about $1,000 increase in tax.
What are the examples of things that the county stopped performing?
So before the county used to ask what data you needed in order to get your bills out. Now they pretty much send you a file with all the information, and each individual tax collector is responsible for going and creating their reports, what they need in order to get their bills out, because it varies from township to township. It used to be, from my understanding, it used to be a little bit more customized, and the county used to help out actually getting the bills out, and instead they just provide the information and put that burden on the tax collectors.
This might not be fair, you may not have the answer to this question, but what's the justification that the county did that? Do you know?
I do not know.
So they used to perform the service for an extended period of time and then just decided after 2020 or after 2019 to stop doing that?
That is my understanding, yes. So moving on to legal fees. Legal fees shows an increase of about $20,000. This is based on our 2020 projections. As you can see, we believe that we're going to possibly go a little bit over budget. So we rose our 2022 proposed number. In addition, we also added some additional legal fees for zoning and the land development rewrite. IT shows an increase of about $17,000. In 2021, we cut back on our replacement program in order to get us back on track with where we need to be. We need to add those dollars back into the budget. Overall, that's about $17,700 is where we need to be budgeted every year to make sure our IT infrastructure is up to date and replaced.
How much of that is equipment and how much of that is service?
So 17,000 of the 168 is actually equipment. The rest of it are software services, camera packagings, things along those lines. So the next we have is facilities. There's a slight decrease of $500. We believe that we can cut natural gas back $500 according to where we're at in this year's budget.
It's not cutting back on the air conditioning. That's not what that is.
Natural gas. So the operating expenses for police are proposed to go up about $11,500. You'll see an increase in the personnel category. If you remember from our personnel presentation, we're proposing adding an extra officer. They would require new uniforms, some additional trainings, things along those lines. So that's the $11,500 that you see increase in personnel expenses. You see a fairly large increase in the fire department. This represents the contribution from the township. Currently, we are contributing about $235,000 to the fire company. They submitted a budget back that is asking for $256,000. So that's a $21,000 increase. They went on to say that it would help them out with their debt service payments, utilities, and just overall operations.
So what is the total contribution that we're going to do in 2021?
So 2021 is 235,000. And then they've requested in 2022, 256,000.
Rich, I don't know if you know this or not. We approved that resolution, right, to charge people to get fire service, that they're allowed to charge the people to get fire service now.
Yeah.
So my question is, we provide a lot of fire service, I guess, to Edgemont in that area.
Mhm.
Do they charge them now, or are we just doing it as being nice people?
I do not know that answer, but I can have that answer for you at the
Could
next
you
meeting.
look into that? Because I think that's important. I mean, if we're spending, I mean, once in a while is one thing, but if we're sending trucks there on a regular basis and our residents are not being covered as well and there's cost increase,
Well,
we're
there's
paying more.
just the cost.
I think we need to have them contribute some money. They don't want to have people that are,
Well,
like, we have a more of a full-time daily thing and then volunteers at night and whatever.
I don't disagree
I
with
think we
you.
need to have some contribution from these neighboring towns that we help.
They call it mutual aid, but I'm not so sure how much aid we get back.
Well, I'm not talking like a Broomall where it is mutual aid.
Right, you're
I'm
talking
about a
about,
town that has nobody there that we go to answer the calls.
right. Edgemont, Willistown.
So moving on to ambulance shows a $6,300 decrease. We hired a third party, or I'm sorry, in 2021, we're going to hire a groundskeeper slash facilities personnel in the Public Works Department. For that reason, we are going to take the cleaning contract out of the ambulance department and have that individual be responsible for it.
And you talk about cleaning their area they use, not the vehicle.
No, it's the
It's cleaning the, sorry, it's cleaning the, I'm going to call
Their
it.
quarters,
trailer.
their quarters.
The trailers, the quarters.
So the next department is codes. You're going to see about a $58,000 increase in codes. We cut back on third-party inspection fees in 2021. This is bringing us back up to more where we were prior to 2021. With that being said, these are, it seems like a big increase, but it's actually offset by revenues. If the revenues don't come in, we're not going to expense this money. Planning and zoning are showing an increase of about 54,000. This increase is based off of where we think we're going to end the year. And in addition, as we talked about before, we're going to hire a consultant, or we propose to hire a consultant for the land development rewrite in 2022. So emergency management, we always have $1,500 in the budget. Hopefully we don't have to use it, but we would like to keep it in there just for some emergency management. Recycling. Currently, recycling is built into the 2022 budget for bi-weekly. Later on tonight, we're going to hopefully get some approval to go out for RFP. If we come back, we'll be able to refine this number once the RFPs come in and give the board a more accurate number of what it's going to cost if we do go to weekly.
You said bi-weekly, you mean bi-monthly?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So just staying with what we are now, it's a $16,500 increase on our current contract.
That was the base on the bid for a few years ago.
That is correct. Public Works remains relatively the same as 2021. George somehow managed to find an $11 savings, but other than
Good
that,
job, George.
yeah, but other than that, everything remains the same in the Public Works.
Cut back on Harry's coffee budget.
Street sweeping, you'll see a large decrease in the budget, goes from 58,000 back to 4,000. This, we did a budget increase mid-year this year to cover our costs to fix the street sweeper after the accident. This 4,000 is where we were budgeted prior to the accident. So we're just bringing it back down to where we were.
George, can you define what the street sweeping operating expenses are?
Sure. So they would wind up being new brushes and regular maintenance, getting it inspected each year. Actually,
We just keep that as a separate item? It's not in your regular vehicle budget, it's a separate item?
it's a separate item. The street sweeper is its own line item. So we keep, all expenses with the street sweeper separate.
Okay, thank
And
you.
again, it's like brushes, we're actually we're at least in our third pass through the township now. We may be going into the fourth one. I'll have to check with Andrew and see where they're at. So they do wear the brushes down and they need to replace them.
Thank you.
I would make note that as we go through several of these next areas, we're actually following the state reporting guidelines for where we report certain expenses. And so you see it as we report it back to the state.
Well, that brings up a point, the street sweeping. So again, driving on 252 and driving on Route 3 this weekend, there's dirt all over the road. So my question is, and maybe you can answer this, are we able to give them a violation over at the high construction / whoever they're
Yep.
I don't know if it's Haynes and Kimball House and BPG, and I think we should start give it to the head guy at BPG. If that's Spader, send it right to him, let him pay. the
They've
fine.
got sweepers, they're under
Well,
That's part of
notice
their
to sweep,
permit.
so,
Mhm.
we shouldn't be, we can send our sweeper out, but we
Well,
shouldn't be doing that.
I'm talking about this Route 3 and 252, and it's on Saturday afternoon, mid-afternoon. Listen, you gotta send the truck out. If you're working Friday, it's gotta go out the end of the day Friday. And if it has to go out at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday to clean it, so it's clean for the weekend, that's what should be done.
Eileen, Andy, I guess that falls to you guys to make sure they're sweeping. Again, Mike brings
I
up a
think the
good
police
point.
department can look.
If,
You see the spots all over the ground.
if they know they don't work, maybe they just need to make a pass every Friday afternoon before they go home. Even if it's not dirty, just go out there and sweep the street before they go home. Make sure it's the last vehicle that leaves the driveway. It's not hard.
I think we really need to have some kind of increasing fine structure, because they just don't get it. This is not rocket science. I know when I work in towns, if you don't get it, you get an increasing fine. This is beyond ridiculous at this point. And send it to Spade or send it to his boss, whoever is in charge over there, and let them start getting increasing fines, and maybe they'll make sure the guy does it.
This is BPG, right?
Well, they're the only ones doing work over there.
Yeah.
252 in Westchester.
And as you saw on the storm a few weeks, or I guess a week or so ago when you sent that video, it's not like for lack of not trying to work with them, but listen, everything they do over there, they've hired High Construction, who, in my opinion, is not doing a good job. Their excavator's not doing a good job, and BPG's not managing the process.
All right, we digressed. Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry.
Okay. The next department you're going to see is snow removal. There is no change in snow removal. This is where the department where we buy our salt and chemicals. Moving on to traffic control. Also, there's no change. This is the category where we budget most of our signal repairs for. Street lights, this $11,584 is actually an interfund loan agreement payment. Back in 2016, we redid all the LED LED street lights in town, and we borrowed the money from the capital, and this is just the general fund's portion repaying that loan. Roads and bridges, also no change from 2021. This is the department where we handle all the miscellaneous road repairs. Parks participation, this would be our contribution to leisure services. They again didn't ask for an increase from 21 to 22. The next would be the Historical Society. The Historical Society also did not ask for an increase from 21 to 22. The next department would be Parks. You'll see about an $11,500 decrease in here. The main cause of this is we are planning on finishing all the rain gardens in 2021. Therefore, we don't need a budget for them in 2022. The library, this is our contribution to the library. We're currently contributing $211,000. They are asking for $230,000, which is an increase of about $19,000. Well, it is an increase of $19,000. They said that they needed to hire some additional staff and possibly do some salary adjustments because they haven't done salary adjustments since 2018 or 19, I forget which one. The EAC is asking for an increase of about $4,400. This is to do some additional training. They also want to get some additional mailings out to the residents in town to, for education purposes.
Well, wait a minute, Rich. So far, we had a budget of $6,800 and they've only spent $868 this year.
Yes.
So how come they need so much more money this year? They didn't even spend their budget this year.
They're gonna spend $13,000 between now and whatever. Or whatever they're gonna spend, I mean.
This is the initial request from them.
It's a request.
We're actually working with each of the different committees.
I think you need to have them explain why they can't spend some of this money this year. It's in their budget.
Yeah, not that we should tell them to spend all their money, but you know, I certainly don't want to do that, but they either need the money or they don't. If they don't need the money, then we really need to look hard at that and see.
Steve, can you look into getting an itemization of what they want to do?
We'll get an itemization.
Well,
We should do that for
as
all of them.
I was just going to say, as a matter of course, if one of these committees comes and asks for an increase, I think as part of protocol, and I'm sure you do this already, Rich, when they give you their request, they've got to justify what that increase is. And I also think if they're going to be remaining, it'd be nice to have a year end kind of, we don't need additional funding, but this is the things that we've accomplished.
Absolutely.
To show that they need that money, that they're using the money for what we were told they were going to use it for.
Absolutely.
Question, and this might just be nitpicking. Why is it EAC/American in Bloom? Because American in Bloom is not necessarily a township committee, right?
It is not, but we have from time to time, and we still do fund the actual purchase or the membership to American in Bloom. That is our membership, not the Newtown Square and Bloom. Newtown Square and Bloom is a 501(c) that
Okay.
functions unto itself.
Okay.
But the township joins the American in Bloom process, so we pay all of those fees.
Okay.
I hope I
that's-
explained that.
No, it answers. I've just got concerned because I didn't know whether those meetings would then have to be publicized and when they have the Newtown Square and Bloom ones, but you're.
No, it's paying for the membership, and occasionally if we send somebody to the conference, we pay for that.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you.
So our next department is debt. You're going to see a major decrease of $536,000 in debt. This is, if everybody recalls from last year, we had a double debt service payment last year. We were still paying the 2016 road program loan, and then we went and took a 2020 road program loan. This is just moved. Since then, we paid the 2016 off. So we're moving this debt service payment from the general fund, which we used fund balance for last year, over to liquid fuels. So we lose $536,000 in debt service, but like I just said, we also would lose the use of fund balance revenue on that side as well. And you will also see another major decrease in pensions. You'll see a $395,000 decrease in our pension MMO. As Steve talked about, I believe it was the last meeting, both of our pensions are 100% funded at the moment.
That's awesome.
And due to a good year in the market, our MMOs have significantly dropped. And this is for a minimum of the year 2022 and 2023 until we get our next valuation.
And Rich, for those pensions that are fully funded, So the residents that are watching us either live or in this meeting room today, that is what the police department and then the non-uniform.
That is correct. And they're funded at market value as well.
100% fully funded at market value.
Correct.
Amazing.
Great, isn't it?
Mhm.
I
There aren't
mean,
many-
we're
there aren't
probably in a
many-
minority, a very
Yeah.
slim minority. of-
Let me just say, I
municipalities that
don't
are
know of
fully
another municipality that can say that both of their pension plans are completely 100%
Out of
funded.
how many municipalities?
2,507.
And not only that, not only are they both fully funded, and I say that, but I think the thing that's impressive that really is a great move is that we've also reduced the assumption rate of the return to 6.5. So it's not even like we have a high assumption rate. Our assumption rate is down to what we believe is close to what we're going to be getting, and we're still 100% funded.
It's awesome.
So the last department is insurance. At this point in time, this is just an educated guess until we go and get our official quote at the end of the year. We took what we paid this year and we added 5% onto it. Hopefully, when we get the official quote at the end of the year, it comes in lower than 5%, but we can go back and adjust this number later in the budget cycle. So that brings us to our overall operating budget. You'll see a decrease of $740,000. Like I said, it's really two main components, the reduction in the MMO and the reduction in the debt service payment. But with the debt service payment, you also lose the use of fund balance revenue. So that leaves us with a 2022 proposed operating budget of $4,028,227.
Awesome. We're good.
And back to the debt service, the reason we had the two debt service expenses was because we refinanced our bond, correct? At a lower
Well-
rate. Is that why we had the two debt service payments last year?
Well, actually, what it was is, if you remember, if you recall, we did a 2016 road program.
Mhm.
And last year, we accelerated doing the 2020 program last year because of all of the sewer lines that were put in. If we'd have had to wait till this year, you would have had the roads all torn up for another year. But by accelerating and going ahead and doing it and matching it with what the sewer lines being put in, it allowed us to get all those roads fixed
Okay.
last year. And so we felt it was the best use of the money to go ahead and use some fund balance to pay the loan 1 year
Right.
so that we could go ahead and get those roads done and not wait.
We
We
also
did
got,
do a refinance, didn't we?
Yes, we
At
did.
one
Yes.
point. for
We
the-
refinanced the money that we borrowed for the building project. And Rich, remind me, we saved
$1 million.
$1 million
Something along
over
those lines.
the life of the loan. So,
Just reminding everyone that you guys are being proactive. That's
Thank you,
all.
Rich. It's awesome. Thanks, Rich. All right, moving on. Appointments to boards and commissions. Item 8.1. Consider accepting the resignation of Troy Dunmire from the Trails and Greenways Committee. Anybody like to offer a motion?
I make a motion.
Motion made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to accept the resignation of Troy Dunmire from Trails and Greenways Committee. Any further questions, comments from the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And in conjunction, consider appointing Dr. Deleah Archer to the unexpired term on the Trails and Greenways Committee ending 12/31/2022.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve the appointment of Dr. Deleah Archer to the unexpired term on the Trails and Greenways Committee ending 12/31/2022. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we have reports. We have a report from the police department. Chief's not here, so we won't get any changes. Report from EMS, the chief's not here. Report from Public Works. George, have any add? Beautiful.
I want to
Go,
compliment George and his team.
please.
We got the paving equipment out and we fixed Earl's Lane pretty well.
Mhm.
And it was, obviously it's not on the schedule we had done for a while, so, and it's very well traveled, so they did a great job in this team.
Well done, George. Excellent, excellent. All right, Andy, anything to add to your report? Okay, Rich Lafiata, anything to
Well, I
add to your
want
report?
to compliment Andy now this year too. No, because he's
Go
usually
for
not
it.
here.
Go.
So I was out a few weeks ago and there's a gentleman up on, in St. Albans that had a major tree fall on his house and he's out of it. It's a ranch house when you're going up on the left-hand side. And he just said you were a pleasure to work with. He said you were very accommodating, tried to help him. And he says, usually when something like that happens, nothing goes well. And he said, you did it, you were very helpful to him in getting his process started. And he even had a problem with his contractor and he had to, I guess, get rid of him and get a new one, but he was very complimentary of you and your team. So thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
I think we
That's
should
good stuff.
recognize our people when
I
when
think
we
that's a
get these
great idea.
compliments, because you don't hear about them every day, but
Right. No,
I'm
that's
sure
a
there's
great
many
idea.
others that we don't hear about.
Right.
Well done, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Rich,
Okay,
anything
sorry.
to add to your report? Mike, any questions?
I guess I'll No. We already did Rich.
We got it, just-
Can't do better than that.
There you go. Library Director Arlene Caruso left the report. She's not here. Eileen, anything to add to your report?
Oh, we do have a question for Eileen.
Go for it.
Eileen, I probably know the answers already. Did we get anybody out after the last storm to look at those basins up there by the Nolan Pond and the two ponds, Episcopal and Lister?
I personally went out myself on Thursday morning. We did not have anyone out because of the tornado
Right,
warnings
I
on the
know.
night of the storm.
Yeah.
But I went around, looked at Lister ponds, Episcopal's ponds, and White Horse's ponds, took a lot of photographs. They were full, but they did not overtop. I know we were spared somewhat. We didn't have as severe downpours as some did in other areas, but yes, everything seemed to be functioning fairly well for what we got.
Well, the only thing that I know of, and that's only because I was driving home and I was at the bottom of where Goshen Road and the Boot Road meet. We had somebody tried to drive their car through that. And it was probably this high, and the fire department had to get the boat from Broomall to come over and help them.
I mean, that is
But I mean, I think,
significantly,
I don't think
that's
there's
in the
anything you can do there
floodplain.
because the
Yeah,
whole
that's,
thing's floodplain. So,
that's significantly.
but again,
in the
that's,
floodplain, yeah.
I know it always floods there, but
Mhm.
that was the worst I've ever seen it.
Well, Mike, I will note that our public works people do block off roads on
Yeah.
our side. As I understand it, unfortunately, this particular gentleman or person driving the car entered from the Willistown Township side of Goshen Road, which we don't have responsibility to block
Yeah.
off, and we can't even get over there, so.
No.
But I know George had our sides.
Yeah, I was
blocked off.
coming in from that side and I couldn't go because there was no signage. And then I got behind two other vehicles and we had all turned around.
Yeah.
Fire department was there.
Mr. Neese, you have a few things on your list.
I do, and if I can. Sorry about that. Yeah, so want to talk about, we put in the temporary speed tables earlier this summer. And we're at the point now, we're getting ready to start taking them out. And we just want to explain to everybody why we're doing that. So everybody understands the tables that we put in are all what they're called temporary tables. And so they're put down. If we were to leave them in, it would play real havoc with our snow plows later during the snow season. Hopefully it won't matter, but if we do get snow and we have to be plowing those areas, we need to get those speed tables up. We are currently just really right now doing some speed table studies. And so they're finishing up right now this week on the Echo Valley area. And so probably beginning October timeframe, end of September, George will be in to take those out. We'll be doing the studies on Sawmill next. And as soon as the police are done doing those studies, we will be taking those out. So, and then we'll have a recommendation for you once we have all the studies and we can give you information back. So I want you to know kind of where that is. That when they start disappearing and people say, why did they disappear? We have to take them out for the winter time.
If the studies do show that they were effective, when would you put in permanent and how long? Because I know because of the plant closes, right? Am I
Yeah,
correct with
so
that?
we have in the budget for 2022
Okay.
to put in permanent speed tables. And so we're doing a study, doing our study now based on the tables being in. And we're actually, my understanding is Chris is actually doing the studies at 2 different locations with the idea that when we take them out, we will do the studies at those locations and see if there's a change in behavior with them in or with them out. One of the things that we know in a couple locations or a couple from the neighbors of a couple of the locations, if I say it correctly, that people are actually driving faster after passing the speed tables. That they're once they get past them, they actually are driving faster than they remember them driving before. So we want to see if that's actually true, so that we can have a really smart and intelligent conversation with you about really what's the best way to go forward.
And is that putting 2 officers out there to match the speed?
It is doing it through I forget what they're called. Is it a VASCAR sign? Am I saying that right? George, do you know what I forget the name of the sign. It's the sign that you see.
Tells you.
Yeah, it's just the police's electronic sign. I'm not sure what its official name is,
I
but it registers the information.
But it's calibrated properly to be able to read the speed limit.
So just to follow up on Tina's question, if after everything's said and done, if we decided that we need to put permanent tables in, would you guess that would probably be done in the spring?
Yeah, we would be able to do it in the spring. We would have clear information probably by the end of November, early December of this year, depending on how soon we get a first snow. If we get one real early, if not, it would be in the early spring when we have a clean roads that we can do a full study.
Right, so we'd have to wait till the spring.
Yeah, and so we would get them in the spring.
And then with the temporary, I know this is a long conversation about these. The temporary speed bumps, can they be reused?
Yes.
And do we have, and then where, do we know where we would want to use those again in the spring? Do we have?
So I think that we believe that over on Sawmill, we would actually want to test 2 other areas using 2
Further
more.
toward the Radnor side or?
Further towards the Radnor side. We also have discussed out here on Ellis Avenue.
Yes.
Is an area where we get a lot of complaints about speed. So we would want to
We
do
have a lot
that.
of people walking on Ellis as well.
Yeah.
And it's a more narrow road.
Roadway.
And you've got kids, you've got a lot of people walking along Ellis.
We have a lot of people that walk up out Ellis to come here to the Gable Park and to the Township building.
Well, in the
and-
library, I mean, this
Yes,
is, I mean,
it's used quite frequently. And
and
so
it's a
we,
more narrow street,
It
right,
is.
George, than like compared to like Earl's Lane and
It's only
things
24
like
feet.
that. So I think
Yes.
it's. yeah,
They
makes
don't
sense.
move when you're walking your dog at 6:30 in the morning either.
no.
They fly down.
Well, they might know who you are.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I just wanted, I really just wanted the board to be prepared for what we're going to be doing, because I
But
suspect,
this helps to give information to say that we're gonna we're taking them up, but we're gonna reuse them. There's testing, we're doing the test, and we will have definitive information in the spring, and then these will be reused, so.
yes,
Okay,
okay?
yep, thank you.
And I would make note that also in the budget for 2022, we've requested 2 additional tables
Okay.
because we think the need is that great.
Yep.
And so, and that's the temporary tables. If you happen to enjoy watching our meetings after you've been here and experienced it live and in person, or if you happen to look at one of our committees, you'll know that we have a glitch in our camera system that happens on a pretty regular basis. And when you switch from one camera to the cameras back and forth, there is a fairly long delay. It actually goes to a blue screen, and sometimes it does that even when we're not changing cameras. It just drops to the blue screen. Occasionally, it even turns you upside down. It's actually quite a bit of entertainment.
I was gonna say,
What I've been told is that we can replace the switch. We're working on that, getting some pricing. I was initially told it was about $9,000 to replace the switch. And they're working on testing one at another municipality that was having, or I think that was having a similar problem. And once we know if that works or not, I think they have a switch that's about half that cost. So I believe we might have that further down on the agenda as a not to exceed amount, but I wanted you to know what that was all about.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. I mean,
Yes.
I'm going to either bring it up at the end, when the agenda item comes or now, but, I think that, obviously I was a big proponent of getting these meetings videocasted or recorded. But I guess the question I have is this, is that the system isn't more than 2 years old. Why are we responsible for fixing a switch?
Well, the switch that was put in, Rich, do you have I mean, I know the switch that was put in is not bad. It just doesn't do what we've asked it to do with the changing of the cameras is the best way. Is that describing?
It's not we need a professional grade switch to have a switch without a delay.
We're upgrading to.
You need more bandwidth, in other words. Bandwidth issue.
Yeah, we didn't, which we didn't know about.
Maybe we didn't think that through when we did this.
I can only tell you when we went through and we asked for the design, we were looking at this and I believe they thought that this particular switch was going to do what it needed to do. But when it goes in and actually does it, there's not enough, I think it's not enough memory in the switch to actually change from one camera to the next.
It'll fix the issue.
It will fix the issue is what I've been told.
And you're waiting on to see if the more or the less expensive switch can be used to fix the same. problem.
Correct. I don't want to move forward and just replace the switch if I can get a switch for half the price and it doesn't have
Yeah,
the
we definitely
fancy
need
name and it works.
that.
Just wanted to let you know, we did a support letter for Delaware Creek Valley Association in regards to a grant that they're going to for additional water improvements within the Delaware,
Darby.
I mean, sorry, I said Delaware, Darby Creek watershed, and we supported that. I just wanted you to be aware that we had done that. Aqua water consumption request, I've not heard anything yet that they've said that we can go back to using water full force. We've actually been asked to conserve. I do know that the plant that was underwater, it supposedly is now back up and operating, but I think they're having to work through the process.
Getting quite a bit of communication on that every day.
Oh, do you?
You get text every day.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, so we're all, more
You
than
get
enough
text on it every day?
communication.
Oh, I get it
every
every
day.
day.
I didn't sign up. No,
I get
don't-
it
I don't
twice a
want to
day
sign up.
sometimes.
I don't get
Oh,
it.
well, then you're getting it more often than I am.
The only
From
place I've
Aqua?
seen it, they
Yeah.
had a sign,
Aqua every day.
Don't
They had a
sign
sign.
up.
I'm not signing up for Aqua.
they had a
Don't sign up
sign
for
on
Aqua.
252 in
I
front
saw
of their
that,
water tower.
It's just as bad as the
Yeah,
there you
telemarketer
go.
saying my home warranty's been extended.
Every day.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, don't give my number.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plenty of communication.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad you're getting it. We're
I'll send
waiting.
it, I'll send it to you.
No, thank you. I'm happy.
Just sign up.
So
Yeah, right.
the next thing I have is I just want you to be aware, I intend to close the office on September 24th for 2 hours between 11 and 1. We're going to do kind of an employee appreciation lunch / team building time. Outside, we're going to just do just an area to get the different teams together from the different departments, who typically don't see each other very much, and make sure everybody knows who everybody is. Board, I'm inviting you to come and be there if you have that. I know it's during the workday and it may be hard for you to get away, but
I think it's outstanding considering how well our team seems to be
Yes.
doing lately. I think it's a great idea.
Continue.
Yes.
Great.
Great.
The last thing is, we were asked to look into doing a road program update to the spreadsheet that's on the website, and also just to kind of get it to where it's back up to current. I have worked with Eileen, and we do have a bid in, or we have a quote in, that would be about $5,000 to update that spreadsheet. So we will, at this point, be putting it in for the budget for next year, but I wanted to let you know where that came in based on the request.
So we're just updating the information we have now. We're not going out and reassessing everything.
We're reassessing the roads that have not recently been done.
Okay.
So that we, some of those roads were actually in fair or decent condition probably 3 or 4 years ago when I think it was 2017.
2017, I
Yes.
think George had done an update.
Yeah, I remember that. yeah.
And so, but the last major one was like, I think 2012.
It
So
was yeah, I think it was 2012, because I was. right when I joined.
2013.
Yeah.
So we're going to basically update it fully, get it back up to being kind of current with where we are based on the conditions of the road, so we can start looking. Just a reminder, we just, last year spent almost $5 million doing roads. We did 11 miles of road last year, which was a huge project in the township. It's going to take us about 5 years to pay all that off.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that we won't be able to do a project in between, but it will probably be smaller projects until we're ready to do another large project again. Just because we don't want to have too many years where we're doing double loan payments in that area. So
Speaking of the road program, I'm sorry, George, on Hansel Road, they came and put the gas line through. Does Pico come back to fix that?
They will. So once they know that all the gas installation is complete, nobody else is going to be added, and that they've tested the lines enough, they are responsible to come back and do the half width.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do they get gas on both sides of the road?
Yes,
So they want gas on both sides of the road, it'd be the whole road, wouldn't it, George?
no, they only rounded up the one side.
Yeah, they only ran the pipe down the one side. There's some areas that it shoots across if it's basically a lateral to get to the house, but they wouldn't be responsible to do the entire road there. They would just have to follow township code and do those areas.
Did they clear cut the street?
On the side that they installed the gas main on, they have to do the entire half road on that side. But if there's areas on the opposite side of the road that they've just shot a lateral over to get the gas to that individual house, they just have to fix the lateral area. But it'll be a half road that's done.
Because Hansel Road, you guys did a great job on a few years ago, and they came in and.
It's always extremely frustrating when you resurface a road and then the utility comes in and wants to do that. The challenge is, of course, whether it be Aqua or Pico or whatever, they are upgrading the services to the residents there. So you need to weigh that.
But it wasn't an emergency situation.
No, it was an installation.
This was a whole new gas installation.
I mean,
Yeah.
I know some other communities have a moratorium. In other words, after you pave a road, if it's voluntary, you can't go in for 5 years and replace the utilities. You can only do it in case of.
Yeah, our
emergencies.
moratorium is 3 years.
Or else they-
Maybe we should up it some more. Maybe we consider that as a change to our.
yeah, it's really one of the reasons, we talked about redoing this road study, and doing that is to really sit down with Aqua and Pico and have the conversations ahead of time. If we know, and
Right,
as
we can adjust our road program.
is if we know ahead of time, we try to make the adjustments. And in addition to that, as Eileen and I were discussing this last week, as we were following up, if we now start planning some stormwater projects in some of these areas as well, we would want to plan to get the stormwater project done prior to us going in and doing the roads. And so, and then we would get Aqua and Pico to do the same thing.
Yeah, we want them to come in and do the utilities at the same time we're doing the start.
Yeah.
Right. And Hansel Road was actually, I believe, 2013 when it was done.
Okay.
It's been a while, so it would have,
Feel like-
yeah, they would have let it go, well past the more. And that's unfortunately sometimes what they do is if they know there's a project coming up that they haven't put the utility in, they'll wait until the moratorium's done and then make the
I
request.
see you guys did such a great job on that. It looked like it was just done a few years ago, so. Except on the Radnor side, but that's Radnor, not
Yes.
you guys.
Steve, on the original item that brought this up, which is the
10 minutes ago.
update to the status. I don't know, I guess it would either be you or John to answer this question, but what is the best practice for municipalities to do that? Is it something that we should do every 2 years, something we should do every 3 years to have an evaluation to look at those roads?
I'll say that some municipalities don't do it ever. They just simply rely on public works or the road tour or something to identify the roads and go through. We were pretty advanced when we originally did the road program because it's just something that a lot of municipalities just don't simply do.
So what would you recommend as a traffic engineer?
Well, I think now's a good time to do one. We put it in next year's budget, go out there and let's make sure we got everything done. And, yeah, it's going to depend on the activity. If we start to do lots of storm sewer projects and things like that, you might not need to do because you're going to end up fixing a lot of roads perhaps. But, maybe every 5 years you go back and reassess your road program and make sure that it's, you figure you're getting 10 years out of your asphalt surfaces. So half the time would be a 5-year. Just look to see to make sure your roads are weathering the way they should be, and the ones that you didn't do aren't advanced enough that they need to be done now.
You say every 5.
That's what I said, every 5 years.
One of the other things that we're going to evaluate in the avenues, we did the ultra thin bonded, which will extend the life of those roads for less cost. So that we're going to look at those potential candidates in that process as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Anything else, Steve?
That's all I have for right now. I know we're going to talk about something later. I can add.
Fund transfer, item 10.1, request to transfer $3,450 from the general fund to the open space fund. This money represents the money that was deposited into the general fund, but was for the DCED Greer Park Master Plan grant.
So move for approval.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve item 10.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is 11.1, a budget adjustment. This is consider approving budget increase 2021-06, which is going to increase the general fund budget as follows. It's going to increase our revenue account, the use of fund balance, by $8,800. And it's going to increase our expense account, the contracted park maintenance, by $8,800. So in other words, it's a wash. The increase will come from the fund balances due to the need to remove 5 trees from our Sawmill Road property as deemed necessary by the Township arborist and approved by our Shade Tree Commission. There's a second.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 11.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion?
Were they just dying, Steve?
Well, it's a combination that they are dying, but it's also they're leaning towards the neighboring property. And they've asked that they be taken a look at. We brought in the arborist to do that. And the arborist did recommend that we take them down.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Are they really big? That's why they're so expensive to take down?
They're large, and because they're leaning the way they are, they're going to have to use a crane to do it safely.
All right, motion was made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Payments, we have 3 items. I guess we'll take them separately since they're all different things. Item 12.1, consider approving pay request number 2, which is the final, in the amount of $3,222.30 to Moore Construction Services for the installation of the infiltration bed at the Flanagan Center.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 12.1. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.2, consider approving the $1,123 escrow release payment to Michael Danowitz at 3909 Rockwood Farm Road for a completed grading project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lycap, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to approve item 12.2. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Last item under payments, item 12.3, consider approving the $580.50 escrow release payment to Peter Hodlowski at 3905 Greenbank Lane for a completed grading project.
So moved.
Second.
Which was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycap to approve item 12.3. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, moving right along. Item 13, bills. I'm going to put these in one motion. This is consider ratifying the bills on check register A dated August 26, 2021 in the amount of $5,689.80. Consider approving bills on check register A dated today, September 13th, 2021, totaling $432,770.88. And last item under this, consider approving bills on check register B dated today, September 13th, 2021, in the amount of $44,028.64. I had the opportunity to review the bills prior to this meeting, and as my motion that we approve them. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Any questions from members of the general public on the bills? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business, item 14.1, consider approving the agenda submission deadline schedule for all boards, commissions, and committees. Mr. Neese?
Yes, if you recall, I think it was probably 3 meetings ago that you kind of directed the staff to come up with a plan so that we would make sure that we had all information in on a timely basis. We went back and we reviewed it, and we feel like the best way to do this is that we would have everything the Wednesday before, have everything turned in Wednesday, the week before any meeting the following week. And so that way we have time to process it all. We have a once a week meeting on Thursday to review all the agendas, make sure that we have everything on it, make sure the wording is correct, and then it's published on Friday. That way everybody knows what's available. There is the possibility if the meetings later in the week, we could add something, but this way we cover for sure for all of our Monday meetings. And most of the time it works for the other meetings as well. And so we will do that. Your schedule is attached to the end of the year. Our proposal is that we would do that. If there's any questions or anything that comes out of this, then we would make a change going into January for the following year. But we believe that this is the best way to do agendas.
And that helps us, so there's no surprises, and our agenda that we post is the same one that we talked about. There was an, oh, something was added. And
Yes,
gives the staff the ability to tell somebody, well, you're too late, and you can get it in the next meeting.
correct. If you adopt this, we now have the authority to take that action.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Altieri and Supervisor Partridge. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.2, consider approving the advertisement of the unexpired term on the planning commission ending 12/31/2022.
Yes, Reed Smith? Yeah. Reed Smith shared with us that he needed to step down from the planning commission. We'll have you accept his resignation, but we did want to make sure that we had an opportunity to advertise. I know we'll be advertising for the 2022 appointments as well coming up soon. We'll be asking for that at the next meeting, but this would be to get the planning commission. If you would like, we could do both at the same time, but just know that we would try to fill one planning commission meeting at one planning commission appointment, as well as then getting you a list of names for next year.
Would you like to offer a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve item 14.2. Any further questions and discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.3, consider approving the pension plan minimum municipal obligation budget payment for 2022 and authorizing the township manager to sign for uniform and non-uniform employees totaling $212,890 and $167,680 respectively. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.3. I don't think we need any discussion pending our previous budget discussion. I think we're doing amazingly well, so this is great. So any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is item 14.4, consider approving the 2020 audit as recommended by the township, or I'm sorry, by the elected auditors.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Lightcap to Roberts Lightcap to approve the 2020 audit as recommended by the elected auditors. I trust everybody had a chance to review that. Any further questions or discussions on the audit? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I would make note that normally we have the auditor here.
Right.
He could not be here this evening. So if it pleases the board, I'll have the auditor come and he can speak to you about the audit at a future date. It's up to you.
I think it would be helpful. I think
Okay.
just,
We'll get him at one of the.
I mean, I didn't have any comments. It looked pretty good, but
but I
yeah.
think it's part of him explaining.
Sure.
We understand it, but I think it's a good idea. to
Okay.
have
Yeah, that's fine.
someone
And I
explain.
think generally it's good news. So
Yeah.
we like to hear good news. So
Right,
let's,
yeah, so
let's
we'll-
bring him in and he can tell us how good you guys did again with the audit. It's awesome. I love it. Item 14.5, consider authorizing the advertisement of a recycling RFP upon final review of the township solicitor. Now, as I understand it, this is for weekly recycling pickup.
Actually, I think I may have poorly misspoken when I gave you direction earlier that we would do two separate ones. This is actually a single RFP that's asking for both what we're doing now, to continue what we're doing now, and to do a weekly.
Right. So just like we've done the last two times, we wanted to make sure that we gave the board the option and we see what the prices are. So we're putting it out as continuing the way we're doing it now, twice a month, but we are also making sure, again, like we did the last two times, that we're having the weekly option and seeing what that cost would be.
Thank you, George.
You guys all happy now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very happy.
Yeah, but can you afford it?
He can, price.
not us.
Okay, all we're doing here is we're authorizing the advertisement of the RFP. Anybody like to offer a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to authorize the advertisement of the recycling RFP upon final review of the township solicitor. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item, 14.6, 14.7, 14.8, and 14.9 are all advertisements for various or various positions within the township. All we're doing is advertising for the RFPs. I think, unless a solicitor jumps all over me, that we can take this in one motion to authorize the advertisement. So this is, we're going to authorize the advertisement for a building inspector, authorize the advertisement of an electrical inspector, authorize advertisement for an animal control officer, and authorize advertisement of an animal shelter. Again, we have already had these positions, but these are RFPs to go out
So moved.
and see if we get something better. Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve the authorization of the advertisement for those four positions, subject to the final review of the township solicitor. Any further questions or discussions on the motions? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.10, consider approving the request of Sergeant Todd Welch to enter into the police drop program on September 6, 2021, with the intent to retire in 5 years.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the request of Sergeant Welch to enter the drop program. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.11, consider authorizing bond counsel to amend the guarantee agreement associated with the 2018 sewer expansion project at a cost not to exceed $5,000. Is there any little explanation?
Sure. So we're in the process of going through a reevaluation by Moody's as to our bond rating. And one of the things that came up was that in the guarantee, there was not a comment that talks about whether or not the bondholders would expedite or request expedition of repayment. And the reason for that was it was not a law when the bonds were originally passed in 2018. However, during the COVID, the federal government passed a law that allows for bondholders to expedite the request for repayment. So in order for us to be in compliance with what Moody's is looking for, and I want to be clear, I think we could go forward because the bonds were issued without it, and we had done that, but Moody's would say that the bonds don't have that provision in it, and therefore, if people do that, the township doesn't say that they're guaranteeing it. And so that would change the bond rating for us as well as for the municipal authority. And it
And
would
the
put pressure going down.
And can you just explain the bond rating and what that affects, if that affects our bond rating?
Yeah,
Just
so-
just simple.
Real simple is the better your bond rating, usually the better the rate that you get when you go out to borrow. And currently our bond rating is a AA1, which is right under a AAA bond rating.
And we want
And
to
so-
maintain that.
And we want to maintain that. The better your bond rating, the better your interest rate when you go out to borrow.
Right, you're lowering your interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is something that's required by federal law. Why are we being charged to have the addition?
Because when it was not a part of the document that was put together by bond counsel originally. And so now it needs to, we can choose not to do it, but it could impact our bond rating. And so that's up to us.
No, and I understand that. I'm not saying that we should do that, but I guess my question is that this is a change that was required. If this was made, if this is something that's required of all of them, isn't it a retroactive? Or we actually are going to pay someone $5,000 to put in a footnote? I mean, that's what we're doing. We're paying someone $5,000.
And I need to, I need to tell you, I have expressed that, as so has Rich, that and that's why I think it's written here not to exceed. That was what they told us the most it would be to
So
do
it'll be
this.
exactly 4,999.
99.
Oh, no, it'll be 5,000.
No, I mean, like, I'm being serious.
No,
It's
I
ridiculous.
totally, I mean, we believe that it literally is as simple as adding the word expedite even to the agreement, which you're going to have to readopt. And that's how we believe it's really that simple. But they have to do, supposedly bond counsel has to review the document and determine if it's just that simple.
I mean, where it gets you is the Moody's rating. If it wasn't going to affect Moody's, I tell them to hit the bricks, but.
Well,
I mean,
and
nothing
let
to
me,
do.
let me
Even
tell
a
you, I
half- even
consider.
Half, of it, like a 1/10 of a percent would be 100 times more than this $5,000.
Yeah.
But they
So
know
it's,
it.
it's.
Yeah, and they know it exactly.
Well, that's why they
Maybe
gave you over
exactly.
the barrel.
And then, because this is for the
And-
municipal, so would the municipal authority pay for part of this as well, or no?
It's our guarantee.
Okay.
And so even though it would affect both organizations, it's our guarantee.
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 14.11. Any further questions or discussions on the motion?
I'll be a yes under protest. No, it's ridiculous. but
So
they've
noted.
gotta
Of the
serve
amount, of the amount.
The amount,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, the amount.
We're still fighting it. We will continue.
So noted. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.12, consider authorizing the township engineer to create bid specification and advertise for quotes to repair, replace the Chariot stormwater pipe at North Lane or North Line and Green Valley Roads all the way to the township line.
Yes, so we have currently we have a small sinkhole. I say small, it's actually gotten bigger over the last year. Sinkhole at the corner of North Line and Green Valley. It is related to a stormwater pipe that comes in actually from Marple Township. And we have actually been trying to say that it's somebody else's responsibility to fix. The problem is the holes in our road. And everybody is saying it's not mine and everybody's pointing like this. At this point, we don't feel like we can continue to wait to get it fixed. We'd like to get it fixed before winter, and at least get it set so that we don't end up with a bigger problem going forward. We're separating this one and the next item out because we're still going to go after, we're working with the solicitor. We're still trying to go after either Marple Township or the owner of the property that it's coming from for the stormwater because it's not, we don't even connect to the pipes is my understanding. And so, but the problem is it's the hole in our road
And it affects our residents.
and it affects our residents. And we're only going to fix the pipe to the line. And so if there's any damage to the pipe going back into the property across the township line, we're not going beyond that. We're just going to fix ours.
We're gonna cut it off.
Are we going to cut it off?
So you're saying someone's got a pipe going into our storm drain?
Well, it was a storm drain. It was an agreed part of the project back at the time in which it was put in. What
But
we,
it's never maintained.
but the question is who's responsible for the maintenance of the line? They're saying we're responsible for the part that's in our road. We're saying that's not the case, but the problem that we have is if we choose not to fix it, the people that we're impacting is our residents. And it's been this way for about a
I
year.
think when we
I
dig
can't,
this up, we need to take a picture, and if it's
Yeah,
coming,
document
if
it.
it's damaged from a pipe that's being fed from Marple, I think we give them the option either pay for it or cut it off.
Yeah, we can just fill with concrete and backfill the hole.
Yeah, play hardball. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, this is a developer did this work. Benefit of the property owner in another town is getting the benefit, and we're sitting here holding a bag to fix it.
But the bottom line is we have to
And
fix it.
it's not right. We have our own drainage problems
yes.
that we can't fix.
Yeah, I have a call in to Adam Matlowski, the solicitor for Marple, because what do they call it, the building department, is that them over there?
Yes.
We've been playing around with them long enough, and maybe they just don't want to.
Let
Yeah,
him
just-
go. Let him,
Address
he
the
doesn't wanna-
issues,
he
so.
doesn't want to pay for this to be fixed. Cut it off, cap it, and let him go tie in on his own property and his own township. Let him pay for a tap fee wherever he has to from Marple, and let him deal with
I
that.
mean, we've spent a lot of time working on our relationship with Marple. We thought we had a good one. I don't know what the problem is with this here.
I don't really know. We finally got, what day was that, George? Thursday? Wednesday?
It was Wednesday.
Wednesday, and I got Mr. Romano on the phone the same time as George was over there. And, it's one of those things where George knows they're aware of the problem, but they're saying to me that's the first they sort of heard of it.
Yeah.
And he finally called me back and I said, George is over there now. And he said he was going to go right over.
So our
How
so our
big is
former
the
health
pipe, George?
inspectors give
And
us a
George
hard
was
time.
there a while. Well, he's
How
there.
big is this pipe, George?
I know he is.
It's like a 24, 36-inch line.
It's decent. I don't have the drawing in front of me, but it's a decent sized pipe. The challenge is, again, it comes from Marple. And there was an agreement back at the time I think it was in the 80s when this was originally installed.
But nothing addresses maintenance.
Exactly. Nothing addresses maintenance. The challenge is if we were to just sever the pipe and seal it, probably the water from the Marple property would then just spill uncontrolled into Green Valley. So it's serving a purpose in that it's getting the water into a stormwater system. If it wasn't there, it would probably just flood the road out.
That's a corrugated metal pipe? Yeah.
And it's all collapsing. We did camera it.
I don't know that we have much of a choice at this point, just to, we
We
gotta
gotta get
gotta
fixed.
fix the hole for the residents anyhow.
And just put them on there.
Steve, we need to though stay on Marple or Joe. I mean,
We are.
we employed the gentleman for a while as our health inspector. Let's get some cooperation here now.
Well, I think we have to go beyond him right now.
But then if I need to call their president, I'll call, we'll make a phone call, we'll sit down and say what the hell's going on here.
Let me see, but Adam's a pretty good guy. He's very
Yeah.
responsive.
All right.
We'll just do it through him.
Okay.
To start.
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.12. Any further questions or discussions on this item? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 14.13, consider authorizing the township engineer to create bid specification and advertise for quotes to repair, replace Chariot stormwater pipe in the municipal parking lot at 209 Bishop Hollow Road.
So moved.
Is there a second? Anybody just offer a second? We got discussion afterwards.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap. Yes, Mr. Nish, go ahead.
So if you've driven around our parking
Is that
lot,
the
you
whole
probably
one?
see
Is that the grate back there?
huh?
Is that the grate driveway?
The grade in the driveway, there's like
Yeah.
3 cones and a plate. That hole has actually gotten bigger over the last about 9 months, I guess. And we looked at our team fixing it. It actually would require going out and getting larger equipment than what we have to dig down into the hole and do what needs to be done. So therefore, we think it's better just to go ahead and
How deep is this line? I mean, I mean, is this concrete pipe? Is this corrugated metal again?
Corrugated metal.
48-inch diameter.
Corrugated metal pipe, we don't allow them in town anymore, obviously, so. It only has a service life of maybe 3 years, so. If it was put in the 80s, we are at the end of it. It's done.
Yeah.
Is there any way, I mean, how big is the pipe?
48.
So we really can't line it for a reasonable cost.
I think because of how badly it's deteriorated. Cross section.
Geez, how much linear feet we looking at?
Let me see, I might have.
I'm assuming you've been down there with a camera or did you climb down in it?
Yeah, I mean, Public Works has been down in it. I mean, we have to get the exact length of it, but it runs a pretty good way up to the front of the building.
So we're talking 100 feet or more.
Big. I'm not sure exactly the total extent of the deterioration, but it's a long run. It's not a quick little fix.
We're gonna put 48-inch RCP back. Could be bigger.
Determined that.
Oh my, okay.
That's not cheap.
No. All right, motion was made and seconded. Any further questions or discussions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 1414, discuss and consider approving the purchase of a new server at an estimated cost of $12,834.
So he is on. So we have our IT consultant on if you'd like to get an update from him. But basically, our server is at a spot where we either have to do a kind of a temporary fix this year and in 2 years replace the server, or we go ahead and do a full replacement at this time for the $12,000. The temporary fix, if I recall, was about $3,000. And when I started looking at the numbers and what it would take to do the replacement, it made sense. So I've asked Josh Cook to be on. Actually, he's the only one online. So we can bring Josh up and he can explain it in further detail.
How old is the server that we're replacing?
This one is 5 years. The problem is related to the police software, the Cody software. They've moved to a version that we don't have on our system. And
bigger?
Takes
up more space?
It takes up more space, but they won't even support the software that we have on our system. It's an older operating software. And so we would upgrade the operating software on this. And we would also need to upgrade I believe, part of the hard drive.
Would the CPU and memory be increased with the upgrade? Or
If we buy the new,
with the new server?
yes, we would do all of that. Josh, if you could speak to that, please.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So as Steve mentioned, the real reason for this is the records management system the police department uses no longer supports the version of Windows that's running on their server. So there's a cost associated with Cody, the records management system, to move from old server to new server. And then that cost, I think the main thing is that cost will have to be done twice because I believe it was 2022 or 2023, we have budgeted for a new server. And I think the main reason is to try to save that cost 2 times. Yeah, that's the main reason. As far as your question regarding CPU and memory, the new server will be plentiful to run the RMS system, Cody, to run Cassell, to do file storage, etc.
Who picked Cody?
That's before my time. That would be the police chief or someone in police administration years ago.
So we made the recommendation for Cody based on the fact that our alert program was no longer being supported. And Cody is the one who kind of is the police software for the area. It's tied to the county. We're the same system then. And so our reporting matches what's happening on the county level and beyond.
So when did we go to Cody?
2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago.
Like 2019.
So how's it
2019.
working? So how's this working then? If we-
Yeah, wait, real quick, if I can just finish this line of questioning. So did we not know that this issue was going to come up? Did we not know that we were not compatible when we decided to do this in 2019?
It's actually a great question. The answer is no, we did not. So to get, I'm an IT guy, so I apologize. But to get a little geeky, the Windows Server version 2012 is supported by Microsoft through October 2023, which is why we put in the 2022 budget or either 2022 or 2023 budget to buy a new server. And we based all of our decisions on that Microsoft supported timeline. Beginning this year, Cody sent every one of our Cody users or every one of their Cody users or their users an email basically saying it will not be supported by the end of this year. Yes, we were completely blindsided. As was everyone else, just for what it's worth.
So right now, you can use the Microsoft because they're supporting it, but they're basically not going to support it after the end of the year.
Cody will not support Windows Server 2012 at the end of the year, correct?
Interact with it. They're saying after the 31st of December, it won't work anymore on that system.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if it's not going to work or just they won't support it, meaning no new upgrades or if there's any issues with Cody.
Crashes, it crashes.
But that's the problem. It's a police function, right?
Can't-
Agreed.
We need to have something that works. If they're doing whatever they're doing with this, they can't have a system that doesn't function or goes
Yes,
down
sir.
on a frequent basis.
We have no choice.
So we're just
Just
moving
another one
our
of those.
purchase up a few years.
That's correct.
So
We had a planned purchase in 2022
That happens.
to
So what are you
do
gonna
this, but with what the lack of
That
service, that's what the issue is.
Same thing happened to somebody in business. They change the systems and you gotta buy different.
No,
software.
no, but it is, it's a common.
Yeah.
Does everybody want to offer a motion on this?
I'll make a motion that we purchase the server, the new server at an estimated cost of $12,834.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.14. Any further questions or discussions on this item?
I do. I'm sorry. So I'm not a technology person by any stretch of the imagination. So Jake or Josh, excuse me. I guess the question I would have is this. Let's say, how long are servers good for?
Between 5 and 7 years.
All right, let's say we're in year 4 and the
Yes, sir.
police decide to change their system again. I guess when it comes to technology, I don't have an answer here. So I guess when it comes to technology, you're essentially just taking a shot in the dark, hoping that the new system that you're purchasing is going to continue to be serviced. Is that how that kind of works?
From a hardware perspective, no. It's usually more of the software perspective. So when you buy a version of Windows or the database server or all those things that run on it, they usually have an end of life. So you try to gauge the hardware and what you're going to need to run to run the software, the operating systems that's going to be running on that hardware. We typically give it a little more, forgive my language, oomph and power than you need today, so we can grow into it. We also make sure that the server can be upgraded by more memory and changing the CPUs and additional hard drives if necessary.
That's why I asked the question about the CPU and memory. So where are we at right now? Where will we be? Not the.
Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure. The new server is going to have 128 or 256 gigs of RAM, which is more than enough to run the 3 servers virtually on it. The current server that Cody's running on, I believe, only has 32 gigs of RAM because it was reused from a different project.
So it's an old one.
It is old and quite honestly not built for being a server. It was more of a workstation, which is
Good for years.
probably not of interest to you guys.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Motion was made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Josh.
Yes, sir. Have a great night, guys.
Switch.
I think he's not the switch.
He's not the switch guy.
No, different. Sorry.
All right, item 14.15. Consider approving the purchase of a camera switch for the meeting room cameras at a cost not to exceed $9,000. I think we've already discussed this at length.
Yeah.
Anybody like to offer a
So
motion?
moved. Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 14.15. Any further questions or discussions on the motion?
I still think it's, I mean, look, I see the issue that you have, Steve. I've seen it when I've watched the different committee meetings. But I think it's ridiculous that we're gonna spend not to exceed $9,000 on something that was just installed. I'm not gonna sit here and point fingers, but how this wasn't thought of, that we were gonna be jumping around camera to camera. To me, it's just, poor planning into the future. I'm gonna be voting no on this for that reason. It's a brand new system. But we can say, I mean, if we can find excuses for anything. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but we can say those caveats to anything. But to me, this is a brand new system. People have cars longer than this without needing to replace anything.
It happens.
That's technology.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Motion carries 4-1. Item 14.16, authorizing manager to engage the third-party consultant to assist with performance measures at a cost not to exceed of $5,000. Mr. Neese.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to table this for tonight.
Okay.
Recommend that you table it for tonight. We'll bring it up at the next meeting. I need to get back with the consultant and determine whether this is going to be exactly what we want.
Item 14.16 is tabled. Excellent. Item 14.17, consider authorizing the advertisement of the 5G ordinance. I think Mr. Sikora has joined us, so I think before we take a vote, let's have him give us the rundown on this. On the
Mr.
podium?
Sikora, if I could ask that you go to the mic, please.
You can bring your computer.
So this was an issue that's been kind of brewing for a couple of years. The mobile service carriers, Verizon and such, they're coming out with this 5G networking, increased capabilities. To do that, instead of the traditional type of big towers that you've seen in the past, you're going to see smaller little towers that typically just get attached to telephone poles and such that are in your right of way as a township. And so the issue arises then, well, if you're going to be in our right of way, what are you going to pay us? Because, we have right of way maintenance expenses and things like that. Also, how big are they going to be? Where are they going to be? What are they going to look like? So all these issues come up. So the state of Pennsylvania largely took up that issue and said, we are going to empower the townships to regulate it, but within these guidelines. And they drew up a very strict set of guidelines and costs. Like, for instance, it's $270 a month per one of these small facilities that's in your right of way. You really can't charge more than that. You can't discriminatorily charge them. You can't try to pass regulations that hinder their ability to be here. I mean, it is a benefit to us and our township, but we also just want to control these things. So what we've done is taken that Act 50, it's called, that the state passed, and we've taken every protective measure that we can based on that and put it into an ordinance. The state law goes into effect, so therefore our ability to regulate goes into effect October 28th of this year. We want to have this in place so that you can take advantage of it right away. There's application fees, there's permit fees. There's some specific restrictions on what they can do. There's limitations on how much we can regulate it. I think one of the most interesting things that's not in this, the ability and the flexibility for us to do it is built into this ordinance. But what's not in this ordinance per se is a design guideline. So there's a very strict set of requirements of design guidelines that the township can develop and impose on these carriers. But it can't impact service. There's a million, it's got to be feasible. So we're going to have to develop what that is. But this ordinance sets the table for you guys to say, okay, give us every protection we can now. And then once this is passed, let's go ahead and develop those design guidelines. Okay. And then the $270 a month will be passed by fee resolution, such so that you can increase it as the state may increase it in the future without having to pass a new ordinance. So the recommendation is just to allow us to advertise this such that we can get it on the agenda, either the very next meeting or the meeting after that, so that by the end of October, every protection that's available to you is in place.
So there's nothing that we can do as a township to stop these things from coming.
There's nothing you can do to stop it. You can regulate it, and you can only regulate it in the confines of what the state has allowed That's why.
And if we don't pass this ordinance now, our ability to regulate or even collect fees is restricted, or we may lose that beyond the event of October if we don't. get
That's
this
right.
done.
It's, there's some, I wouldn't say contradictory language. They use different language for the ability to charge fees for being in your right of way versus application fees. So I think even if you didn't have the fee in your ordinance per se, you may still be able to just pass a resolution to do that. But application fees, I think you actually have to put into your ordinance. So we put everything in there.
Right.
And then the other things such as the different requirements and everything have to be in the ordinance.
And we are at the maximum that we can charge per the state.
Yes.
Anything in here, and I know I read it, but you can, anything in here about streetlights? And I've seen these things put in other communities, and sometimes they require or include a streetlight that goes along with it. I know in other, where they might be putting these in parts of town, we might have streetlights. Is that something that's part of this? Or can we make it part of, or,
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't know where the state law sits on this.
I don't specifically remember if a street light
Yeah, I
portion
don't
is in there. There's a lot in here about heights.
Okay,
They may have to put in their own utility poles. They have the right to do that. The utility pole cannot be higher than 50 feet with these things. I can look and let you know the answer about.
I just, I know, like I said, I've seen these before, primarily in other states, but the ones I have seen usually are have streetlight attached. I mean, they have to bring power to them, so you can easily put an LED streetlight on there. And it could be a benefit for areas of the community that don't have streetlights. If you're getting one of these poles in, better cell service, which it will admit, and there are areas of town that have very poor cell service. So
So, and just to clarify what your question is, are you saying, can we put a street light on their tower?
make them
or
put it
can we
on first.
compel them to put one on
Yeah,
there?
make them put it on
Yeah,
first.
I'm not sure. I don't think we can require that. I'm gonna take a look though. Okay,
Take a
I'll
look.
let you know. Yeah.
we can,
We want to have it in place so that there's no gap at all in
Right.
anything that we can charge for.
exactly.
And just to be clear, right, to flesh out what John said, there's nothing legally we can do to prevent these from coming in. This ordinance is more of a protection. It's not necessarily an invitation for them to start coming in here.
No, that's right. I mean, what was happening is townships were saying, hey, we want to regulate these, and yeah, they have to be very close together. I don't know how close together they have to
Oh,
be.
there's a lot of them.
Yes, but there's a lot.
They
They're
need to put a lot of
small,
them
they're
in.
small and close together. And so if you make a regulation that says, well, you can only have them in our town, they have to be 3,000 feet apart. And they go, well, they have to be 1,000 feet apart or they don't work. That's over regulation. So the state basically said, we're taking this because, frankly, you don't want to stop it. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all going to use 5G
Well,
at
no,
some
there are
point.
parts of the community that have very poor cell
Yeah,
service, so this is
Grandma.
something that should help
Yes.
us all, I guess.
Yes. But to answer your question, that's correct. We can't stop it even if we wanted to. This is the maximum regulation that we can do, and that's why.
And all we're doing tonight is we're just authorizing the advertisement.
Yeah, right. So what would happen is we're going to advertise it. I would propose advertising it so that our next meeting, unless it's too packed of a meeting, we'll just put it on there for consideration and adoption. That way it'll be in place as soon as the state law takes effect.
Anybody like to offer motion for advertisement?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lycap, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve the authorizing the advertisement of the 5G ordinance. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Last item under new business, item 1418, discussion and or submission of comments relative to the Delcora ESA Act 537 plan.
So we've received a notice from Delcora related to a plan that they're putting in. So if you're aware, on the Eastern Service area, they have any flow that we have that goes to the Eastern Service area ends up getting processed at the Philadelphia plant. Philadelphia plant is under a consent decree order related to particularly stormwater or storm events, because when the stormwater gets in the system, it increases the amount of flow that goes to the plant. The plant's not able to handle it. It's discharging the excess into the river. And so obviously they're wanting to get that under control. And so as Delcora is looking at the customers that it serves, we tend to only go to the Philadelphia area when there's overflow. And we happen to be serviced by Delcora. If I could take 2 minutes to kind of just say, we're a conveyance system. In Newtown Township, we have a couple pump stations, but we have no processing of wastewater. It then goes to CDCA, which is the Central Delaware County Authority. And I'm doing this for the folks at home, so they understand. And then from the from the CDCA, it goes and connects into the Delcora system. Delcora does have processing down in the southern part of the county. And so they process all the waste and then take care of disposing of it. What happens in a rain situation, it's more than what they can handle. And so they send part of it over to the eastern area, over to the Philadelphia area. It's more than what they can handle. So the consent decree comes into play in 2028. The agreement between Delcora and Philadelphia is up for renewal. Delcora is looking for a way not to be dependent upon Philadelphia so that we are not paying the high fees that are related to that. So what they've done is they've designed basically a tunnel that will go and run basically along the southern border of Delaware County from the eastern side to the western where the processing plant is. And it's a very large tunnel. Like it's tall enough that I could walk it down inside of it and very easily. Would not want to. I'm not asking to. I don't want any part of it.
Maybe
But
before it's live.
yeah, before it's live, maybe, but it's large enough that, it's a very wide, bigger than I am tall, wider than I am tall tunnel that goes from that whole section that will be able to take all of the waste from the eastern side of the county and take it down to the plant. The idea of this tunnel is it does two things. It serves as storage, but it also serves as moving. It moves it from one location to the other. They looked at just putting in a pipe to move it from one to the other and then have to do upgrades to the plant. I don't remember the exact dollar amounts, but this is like half the cost of staying in Philadelphia and what the fees would be. And it's again, about 50% of it's about 2/3 of the cost of if they were going to do a pipe and upgrade the plant itself. There are some upgrades that get done to the plant, not significantly. So all that to be said, why are we discussing what happens with Delcora? We're discussing what happens with Delcora because their process, part of our 537 plan for how we treat our waste is because we do it through Delcora. And that's what it says in our plan. And so this is changing how it's done. Part of our waste would actually go through the tunnel and go down. And because of that, we would change our 537 plan. This is going before the Planning Commission. Andy's left. It's going before the Planning Commission at the next Planning Commission meeting, which is the 4th Thursday of this month, September. The question that I have is, do you want an opportunity to review the comments of our Planning Commission on the Monday after that, which is the 27th at your next meeting? Realizing I have a very short window from Thursday to Monday, we would get you those comments as quickly as we possibly could, allow you to review the comments and make any additional comments that you would have on the plan that we could submit. We have a 30-day window to submit those comments back for this. And so that's the reason why I've got it on the agenda tonight. Just want to make sure you want it on your agenda. You potentially would have public comment related to it, but I just wanted you to be aware.
No, I think we should at least see the comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we take public comment on, we take public comment on, that's fine. I mean, this sounds like a good plan to get out of the Philly system. I mean, they have a huge combined sewer overflow system, I guess, for the benefit of everybody. Most people don't understand is that, especially in the city of Philadelphia, the sanitary sewer and the storm sewer system are essentially one and the same. So it's designed to treat a certain amount of flow, but the storm sewer is 100 times more than the sanitary sewer flow. So when it rains a lot, it just wipes out the sewer plants.
They had an
So,
article in the Inquirer about it today.
oh, did they?
Yeah, talking about the.
So, if we can be out of that, because in Delaware County, it's not so much a problem as is, some of the lower parts of the county, they still have that, but for the most part, all of our systems are separate. So if we can be out of that altogether, I think that's a better thing for us, but yeah, I think we need to see the comments.
Okay, great.
Any other questions from Mr. Neese on that? All right, that brings us to old business. We have nothing listed.
Can I bring something up for old business?
Absolutely, you can.
Go
Well,
ahead.
no, I mean,
No, you
we need
absolutely
to
can.
talk about this. Eileen, there's all these houses getting built over in the heights. And walking over there the other day, I noticed that one of the houses that was built in 2017, 107 Chestnut, has a trench drain across the bottom of the driveway. He's higher than the road. He also has on-site some sort of drainage structure. There's a house, what's the name of the one that's being built that was where we passed up the trailer the other day? A
It's
real
on the
small
corner.
postage stamp lot.
On the corner of, it's the one that's zoning denied and the court overturned. It's on the corner of Main and Farmview. Well, yeah, Walnut, yeah.
College and Walnut is the
All right.
one I think you're talking about
Well-
that went to court.
Yeah,
Well, I want to make sure that that gets the same treatment as this house, because this guy at least is doing something. That house, all that water's gonna come right on that road, go across the street, and then where's the one with the guy putting the lions and everything up, that he's basically tripled the size of his driveway.
the Eileen and Andy have been working on
That's
that one
Pine
already.
Street, 106
Yeah,
Pine.
but all that water now,
They
he's,
have a system designed.
but there's nothing at the driveway throat to catch this water. Is there any reason why we can't require these people to do this?
I'd have to look back at the plans to get the specifics.
Yeah, I
of
think we need to
what
look at
is
trench drains for all
proposed,
these
but I
people.
believe
And we have a serious problem in the heights, and these people are increasing the flow off their property because they're all up a hill, and it's all going off
They're
their
actually
property.
providing stormwater management.
Okay, but we want to make sure it's caught at the bottom of the driveway. I don't know where they're providing, because I didn't see
Some
any.
people will take and compensate for the driveway they're putting in and put roof drains that currently are not controlled into a system, balance out what's being proposed. That's why I said I have to look
All
at
right,
the
well,
plans.
I would
to
like
see.
you to be able to talk about that at the next meeting, because we have a serious problem over there. I've seen two places in the last few days that, and I've seen one place that actually has a solution. And that house is built, I think it's 2017. I sent you an email on that one, 107 Chestnut. And if we could get these other people that are building on these postage stamps that are gonna sell these houses anyway, to at least.
They've all got controls proposed.
Yeah,
if they're
but we
got
want
permits.
to catch the water before it goes off the
Well,
property.
I
I
think
don't
what
want to catch,
I think what Eileen's saying is that the water that's coming down the driveway is no more than what might have been coming down off that property prior to construction. They're accounting for the other impervious surface through some other way on the property itself. Instead of putting a trench drain in the driveway, they may be doing other things on the property, collects the stormwater, so that the water that's running into the street is the same amount of water that was running before they built the house.
right, but it was all green.
Yeah, but
Mhm,
you're
that's
still
what the
a amount of water.
calculations for Stormwater do.
All right, well, I'd like to make sure we're definitely looking at that
We are.
very hard, and if we have to do an ordinance or upgrade the ordinance to protect that area, we got to do something. They're building on all these postage stamps. We deny them in the zoning board. They go to court, they win, and it's a major problem.
And part of our grading process review is to make sure that the post stormwater runoff does not exceed the pre-stormwater runoff onto the street. So they may have grass that comes down onto the street, but that's water that's still allowed to flow in the streets, and it was flowing there before they build anything. So they make sure that the amount of flow into the street after they're done construction, even if it's coming down the driveway, is less than the amount of flow that was coming down there before they built the house, and then they store it
Unless they
somewhere
come
else.
to the board for a waiver, they don't get any relief whatsoever.
We don't give
Okay,
any waivers for that type of
good.
thing.
All right, thank you.
Good. Any other old business? All right. Next, item 16, resolutions and legislative action. Consider approving resolution 2021-29, authorizing Rich Lafiata to execute all required forms and documents for the purpose of obtaining financial assistance under the Disaster Relief Act. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, resolution number 2021-29, designation of agent, resolution 4506 DRPA. Whereas the Township of Newtown, Delaware County desires to obtain financial assistance from Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, PEMA, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now therefore it be resolved that the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township, that Rich Lafiata, Finance Director / Assistant Treasurer, is hereby authorized to execute for and on behalf of Newtown Township, Delaware County, a public entity established under the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, all required forms and documents for the purpose of obtaining financial assistance under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, Public Law 93-288, as amended by Public Law 100-707. Resolved this 13th day of September 2021 by the Newtown by the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Newtown. So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Motion is seconded by Supervisor Russo. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Neese, how much money were you expecting under this?
I think they,
$7,100.
yeah, I think they
Oh,
whittled
boy.
it down to $7,100.
This is the one that I've been getting like 3 emails a day on.
Yes.
Okay. This one, I'm getting them at my work, I'm getting them at home. I'm like, I don't want that. You know, all right, no, that's good. Does any board member have any additional business?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The AC system is not acceptable. So either Mr. Catania or Mr. Sikora can write our contractor that put this geotech system in, and I want it right. It's a premium price we paid, and the air conditioning here is beyond ridiculous. It's unacceptable. It's never performed right since I've been in here, since it's been done. And that is a failure of design, which I assume the geotechnical thermal guy had his own engineer. So if he doesn't want to come fix it, then we start a lawsuit. I'm done with this. This is unacceptable. Geothermal comes through a ground, it's 50-some degrees. There's no reason why it should be hot in this building.
Unless Mr. Neese is a miser and he's not turning the heat cold down.
It's just unacceptable.
I am a miser, but I'm not when it comes to that. So.
All right.
Well, I mean, we don't even have a lot of people in this room. I mean,
I'll admit that I'm sweating now too. So
I
No, I am.
I mean, that's why I typically don't wear a suit and tie, because it's so hot in here, you overheat.
And it's inconsistent throughout the building, right? I mean, aren't you guys
Yeah.
freezing in
It's
some
hot up in
aspects?
the room upstairs. It's just
I
not
mean, literally, I think it was last week, the chief came in, his office was 59 degrees.
Yeah.
working.
Chief,
Something's not right.
I don't
think
have the
you got-
meetings in his office.
Well,
I think
Is this
Mike's
not-
right. I mean, I think you guys have been trying to do it on the township side, you know,
Yeah,
the
we're not-
administrative side. I think it's now time to get our lawyers involved. Because it is, I mean,
I mean, the system's how many years old? 2 years old? 3 years old, and it's never worked right since we've had it, so.
I mean,
And
there's a
geothermal
balance
is like the
issue.
best
yeah.
system, yeah. I don't know if it's a balance issue, I don't know if he said it doesn't have the right, setup, has it adjusted right or whatever, but it's not right.
I have something. Can I request a digital speed sign temporarily on Chestnut Street? I've been getting a lot of complaints about speeding,
Yeah,
flying
we
down
almost
Chestnut.
got hit there the other day or so.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, we can. We have two.
I mean, the real small one. Just-
I understand the challenge right now, we're using those at the speed tables to do our study right now at the speed tables. So I mean, I'll get it on the list, but it may be 2 or 3 weeks, just,
Okay.
or I can work, I'll talk with George and we'll talk with the chief to see if we can squeeze it in for another time,
Okay.
but we'll see that.
How's his,
Chestnut Street,
What about, yeah, how about his giant message board? Is he using that right now? We'll take it. No, I mean, serious. I mean, look,
seriously, people
I
are
know
going really
speeding
fast
is,
down that road.
I know speeding's an issue in every neighborhood, but it's just gotten out of hand with everyone coming back into school and.
well, what I will tell you is there is not a week that goes by that all 3 signs are not up somewhere, other than when they bring them in to download the data and to recharge them. They are used constantly. It's actually the reason why in the budget for next year, we've requested an additional large sign and 2 more of the
What was-
small signs.
How much are the small signs?
4,500 plus
Is there any-
19.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't be able to get some of those out of fund balance now? I mean, I understand a big sign's a bigger thing, but we're having speeding problems all over town. And now, I noticed today, I drove my son to school today on Bryn Mawr Avenue, and there hasn't been that much traffic there in over a year.
Okay.
So everybody's starting to drive now. I mean, and literally, I was walking around the Heights the other day with Leonard, and literally, people were going probably 40 miles an hour down Chestnut. And I've seen people fly past me when I'm coming here to the township building, and they have to be going at least 45, 50 miles now. And that road's not even that big.
Yeah, it's a small.
So just so you understand, we are with.
I know
the
you're
new-
doing I know you're doing the study. And I can tell those
No,
residents that you're
No,
doing the study.
but let me just say this. And for the purpose tonight, if you're asking us, the answer is yes, we could purchase. But if you're going to vote to do that, we have to amend the agenda And then we have to do that. We do it by roll call vote, and then we go through that process. So we can do that, or I can add it to the
I want to
agenda,
make sure we get these.
or I
things.
can add it to the agenda for
Yeah.
next week.
We don't want to end up in a situation where we did with the speed tables where then Kobe came and we got snookered. So we need to get these things. I mean, those are cheap. That's a cheap investment, $4,500,
And they do slow
$9,000.
people down.
I mean, people see it and everybody's reaction is to slow down because they don't know if there's somebody sitting around the corner
Yeah.
ready to give them a ticket.
But Steve, it's safe to say around 2-3 weeks to get back to those residents.
Let me, in tomorrow morning's staff meeting, let me have a conversation with both George and the chief and really talk about like what does it impact if we wait a week to do the study on Sawmill?
I don't want to, I mean, look.
No, I just want to see I just need to see what the impact is on what that does, because I know George is getting a little bit close on time for the
Yeah.
purpose of leaf collection. So I just want to make sure that we thought through it before I just make it and just say we're going to do it. But I'll give you an answer by midday tomorrow.
Now I know I normally just send an email. I don't mean to make this a convoluted process. I apologize.
And if I may ask, when we talk with the chief, what's the location on Chestnut that you've witnessed the problem
The
primarily?
complaints are coming from, well, all of Chestnut Street, as you know, and the police have had issues on Chestnut Street with speeding and with neighbors. But the section in particular was between College to Tennis. But then it also, I mean, really, I would say it's
There's the other
probably,
side of the hill too.
I would say it's probably College to, I mean, again, it's the whole street, College to probably Farview. You
Okay.
know, going down the hill towards Summit, they obviously pick up speed naturally. Going up, they're not that bad, but we almost got hit walking up the hill.
Okay.
They were aiming for Mike on that one, not me. So,
I have my Leonard mask on and shirt.
yeah.
We're going to have to get you guys those yellow reflective stuff when
We're
you're
gonna
out.
start getting Georgia shirts. That's what I'm gonna need walking around.
Any other additional business? All right, moving on to board comment. I have one, just remind everybody, on Saturday between 5 and 8 PM, we will be having the Gather in the Circle event. Gather in the Circle is a township sponsored organization through our EAC. The circle will be closed. There'll be events, there'll be food, there'll be all kinds of things going on there. So I'd encourage all residents, hopefully you're all listening on the TV, to show up. It's going to be a great time. I'm understanding most of the supervisors are going to be there and it should be a lot of fun. So again, it is a township event, so please make some time, come by the circle on Saturday between 5 and 8 PM. I'm talking about the St. Albans Circle, of course, and join us. Any other board comments? At this time, I'll open up the floor to any comments from the general public. If you'd like to comment about any item that's not on the agenda, please step forward and be heard. Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn. Our next meeting is Monday, September 27th, at the same place here, 7 PM. In the meantime, have a great 2 weeks and enjoy.